Let's get more now on President Trump's National Guard deployments. The White House has appealed a federal judge's restraining order on troops for Portland, writing that nearly 200 years ago the Supreme Court made clear that these judgment calls are for the president to make, not a governor, and certainly not a federal court. We put that argument to the Attorney General of Oregon, Dan Rayfield, a short time ago.
I think that they have misread the United States Constitution. When you go back to the founding of the United States, it was very important that not one person was given too much power, co-equal branches of government. So in our Constitution, it gives the power to Congress to raise an army and for the budget of the army. They have delegated some powers to the president. The president has to follow those laws that Congress passed, and that's what the judge said. Right now, there isn't an invasion in Oregon. There isn't a rebellion in Oregon, and the president can still effectuate the laws of the United States.
Well, with me still is John McCarthy, former principal advisor in the Biden White House, and Elizabeth Pipko, former GOP spokesperson and Trump campaign surrogate. Elizabeth, I'll come to you first if I can. We heard that voice from Oregon there, not happy at these federal troops. Now, President Trump has described an invasion on America of illegal aliens, hence the need for ICE troops, certainly in some parts of the country. The governor of Illinois says it's federal troops who are invading his state.
Well, look, I am a little confused on the topic, right? We've been talking about the topic of crime in our country for some time now. We talked about it with California. We're talking about it now when it comes to Illinois. There's a lot of crime issues when it comes to what's going on in our country. And I would hope that Democrats would rather accept help from President Trump than to allow anyone to die in their individual states or cities. That's what I once thought that America stood for. I think there are cases that need to be presented. There's obviously legal issues that should be discussed here. But the fact is, crime statistics from this weekend alone in Chicago, I believe, showed 22 shootings. No one can debate that we have a crime problem. And it seems that we've become so partisan and so politicized that we're ready to spend our resources on suing the administration rather than spending those resources on protecting our own citizens if it helps people to score a win against Donald Trump. I don't stand for it. And I believe actually the majority of Americans, left or right, don't stand for it as well.
John, Elizabeth's not wrong there. Crime in Chicago is sky high by most metrics, and something needs to be done.
I mean, this is something that voters have said time and time again, and both sides of the political equation need to listen to them. Crime in cities and in neighborhoods is something that people care about. This is a really serious issue that is being handled in a very unserious way. And that's really the problem that we're dealing with. Make no mistake about it. This is not actually about crime in cities. This is about Donald Trump testing the limits of presidential power. This is about him overriding the will of the people who are locally elected and their local representatives to send in the troops, to send in the National Guard, people who we should be respecting the honor of their calling. And instead, he's using them as political pawns to test his own political power.
Elizabeth, what do you make of that? Is this less about crime and more about the way the president is conducting himself?
Unfortunately, I have to say, I think it's comical that while people are dying in our own country, we're deciding why we believe Donald Trump is doing something that may bring some kind of safety to these states in America. I don't think it matters why Donald Trump is doing anything. We can sit and argue back and forth for hours based on whether we like Donald Trump or dislike Donald Trump, why believe he does anything. But the fact is, if this can stop one crime from being committed, one American life from being taken, we should be encouraging this. The fact is, when we have a problem with crime, we should be able to work together and support the president that wants to make sure that that crime comes down. I don't care if it's in a red state or a blue state. I care that Americans are safe.
Well, you say that, but many people will watch around the world and say, hang on a second, this is a president who refused to send in the National Guard on January the 6th when the Capitol was being stormed, but now he's happy to send them to a relatively quiet place like Portland.
For anyone who did their research, it's actually been proven Donald Trump did request the National Guard, and that was rejected by Democrat leadership. So that's actually not true. January 6th is another one of people's favorite arguments. But the fact is, Donald Trump has said both on January 6th and when it comes to crime right now, he doesn't care if it's red states or blue states. He wants the crime to come down. He talked about it his entirety of the campaign trail. Crime is a problem in this country. He's a law and order president. There's a reason that people voted for him.
If Donald Trump was a law and order president, he would respect the law enforcement officials and the local officials on the ground. I mean, he should be working hand in hand with local law enforcement if that's really what this was about. But to the point that you were making earlier about this being a serious issue, I agree. And if you actually look at the social media channels of this administration, it's anything but serious. You see the Secretary of Homeland Security tweeting these Hollywood-style videos of fast car chases and helicopters coming around, and the administration likes to act like this is a lighthearted kind of thing. But in reality, this is a serious issue, and people are looking for real solutions, and that's not what the administration is providing.
So, Elizabeth, how is this going to play out then? We've got these legal challenges bouncing around. The president's going to stay firm, but local lawmakers in Chicago saying they're not budging either. Which way does this go?
Well, look, I don't know. I hope that in the process, both leadership in these individual cities and states and the federal government, whoever is able to bring help to the people is actually who is successful. That's who I root for. You mentioned the memes and things coming out of our administration. I would assume the average American has more of a problem with their local leadership allowing for crime to continue in their cities than they do with jokes put on the internet. The fact is, people are dying in America in 2025 in ways that they should not be dying. There are elected officials that care more about scoring wins against Donald Trump and winning their own elections than they do protecting the people that put them in the offices that they hold. That is a major problem, and I hope at the end of the day, regardless of who you voted for, you want the American people to come out on top.
OK, we are out of time, unfortunately. Elizabeth Pipko, former GOP spokesperson and Trump campaign surrogate. And with me here in the studio, John McCarthy, former principal advisor in the Biden White House. Thank you both very much for joining us.
Thank you.